Hello Inform Scotland followers and friends. I have updated the website informscotland.uk with the data that were as they were updated by the government statistics today, the 20th of October. Maybe the next time I do a video, you'll be getting a more high-tech, more advanced video, because one of my followers very kindly yesterday met up with me and she was basically giving me a bit of a kick up the bum. She said that she's very concerned I'm going to break my iPad, which is inevitable, frankly, and that I should use a video sharing app. So I'm just trying to work out how to do that, but I can share my screen with you and it'll all be a little less low tech and amateurish. It's one of these things. I mostly do most of what I do just because it's how I've always done it, even though I know sometimes it's not the best way. The situation with the COVID stats is not looking good. Again, in my view, I think we're looking at things getting a little bit worse again, which was no surprise to me. I've had my suspicions that we are starting our sixth wave, and you can see in the first graph that I've shared on the website today in the blog post that the latest uptick in cases continues. It's certainly not falling back down to the old background level that we used to have. This is all quite absurd. The percentage positives look worse, I'm afraid. It definitely looks like we are entering a sixth wave. It's hard to say what's going on here and what we can expect, but I'm really disappointed to see, I say disappointed, I'm concerned to see that our base rate there, which we've bottomed out at, is just about as high as our peak in the autumn wave was. This is concerning because we've got so many people vaccinated in Scotland now. What is going on? Why is this not a talking point? I just can't understand it. Positivity is only going up and up and up. And I think it is true positivity in a sense. I think we are seeing something genuinely going on there with disease as well. And I've actually got a graph further down the page that shows that. Simultaneously to this really overall deteriorating COVID picture, this graph here, graph 3, the green line is delayed discharges. Now, look at the level of the delayed discharges there. We used to sit at 1,000. Now we are sitting at about 1,500 and higher. I think today the number of delayed, or the last reported number of delayed discharges was 1,551. Now, there's two things about that are important. One is it's significantly more, as you can see. This left-hand axis is the hospitals and delayed discharges number. It's a lot more than the COVID patients. So delayed discharges are more, are more even than the COVID patients. But the other, it's not good to have that number of delayed discharges. And the question is, what's happening there? So we're hearing, in Aberdeenshire, for example, we've had news recently that NHS Campaign is asking the military to come and help in the hospitals because the situation is so bad. Is it because we've got so many people stuck in hospitals? Why are they stuck in hospitals? Why can't they go out? Is it because there's a problem at the care homes end? And I suspect that is the problem. So this is bed blocking. As we are going into winter, this is a really bad situation. Last winter, through the autumn and January waves, we had 1,000 delayed discharges. We are entering our winter now with all the staff shortages due to illness, due to stress, due to exhaustion because of what we've been doing the last year. A lot of people are testing positive and having to isolate. People are getting sick from their vaccines. We're hearing that there's a lot of staff off who've been sick from their vaccines. A lot of staff are catching COVID and getting ill with that. And now we're entering winter. Our excess death rate is through the roof. We have COVID cases coming in at an enormous rate. The hospitalisations are not falling. That's the blue line. We still have lots and lots of COVID deaths, and we have 50% more delayed discharges in hospital this year than we had last year. So the military is the solution. I'm not trying to be gloomy, but this next graph, which I admit is quite complicated because it's got 4 different traces on it here. There's a lot going on in this graph too. The black line is positive tests. Now, my argument is that if you compare the 2nd and 3rd waves to the 4th and 5th waves, it's just an absolutely ridiculous amount of testing we've been doing in order to find those people who end up in hospital. And while the problem in the ITU, that's the red line, has not been anything like as bad as it was in January, I mean, again, you might expect that because you would hope that we would be getting much better at treating COVID now so people don't end up in ITU. But you can see that the positive tests have turned up again. Again, only bottoming out at the peak of the last wave, or the wave 2 waves ago, the summer wave here. This is not good. This is nothing like the old baseline. But anyway, you're seeing an upturn there in ITU, and I suspect that's going to continue. So the improving picture in ITU is not lasting very long. And again, you know, it's similar to the level that we were at last autumn as we're starting. Hospital occupancy, red line is 2021 compared to blue line, which is 2020. You can see that we have an awful lot more people in the hospital than we did this. Well, actually, that's not true. We're matching up now, obviously, because the lines are meeting, but we have had a worse summer than we had last year. I also did a really interesting calculation, so I don't know what you think, but I think that this red curve looks worse and higher. Generally, it looks like the hospitalisation or hospital occupancy has been higher generally this year than it was last year. So I did a recalculation. Each day I'm reporting here, or each day that's on the graph, I'm reporting the number of people in hospital with COVID this year. That's what all the traces show. Now, if I calculate the total number of patient days with COVID in Scottish hospitals, last year, for the whole year, we had 203,033. Okay, this year, so far, we're looking at 191,992. So that's 192,000 compared to 203,000. Now, last year, that was all in a compressed time period, so it was only for the last, we only started getting patients that we were counting as COVID patients in hospital. Surely we had COVID patients in hospital before then, but I think the first date was the 10th of March 2020, around that time. So that was us already 2.5 months in to the year. So now we're about 1.5 months, we're 2.5 months out from the end of the year. So we're talking about a similar time frame, but it's certainly looking like this year overall is going to be worse for hospital occupancy for COVID than it was last year. That's with a huge proportion of the population having been double vaccinated. We have more people in the hospital overall in 2021 than in 2020. Is that not bonkers? I'm sorry, is it not bonkers? Am I crazy for thinking it is bonkers? So last year, the year of the great epidemic, before we had a vaccine, we had fewer or a similar number of patients in hospital with COVID as we've had this year. Comparing 2020 to 2021, looking at deaths, last year we had, I've just noticed a mistake in my blog, I'll correct that. Last year we had 4,578 deaths with COVID in Scotland. 4,578. This year we have had 4,402. Can you see that in the top line there? This red wave, that's 2021, the red trace, is worse than that blue wave in terms of total deaths. We've had a whole summer of deaths, where we didn't have that last summer. And I think we can probably expect a bad couple of months for COVID deaths, or not a great couple of months. So again, we're looking at a similar number of COVID deaths for the 2 years. Does that surprise you? With this number of people vaccinated? What is going on here? And the other question is, the way epidemics normally work, as I understand it, and I'm no expert, but I'm able to use my brain, and I'm able to read, and I'm able to look up previous epidemics. What normally happens in an epidemic is a virus comes through, or a bacterium. Virus comes through, it catches all the susceptible people. There are people in the population who can be young or old, depending on the virus, but the virus finds the susceptible people and it kills them. And that's very sad. But it's been a fact of life that we've all had to live with as humans for millennia. But once that virus has been through a population, it's found all the susceptible people and it's done. You don't get second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth waves normally. You might get ripples, subsequent ripples, which I think we did have in the second wave of coronavirus in Scotland, because if you look at excess deaths, we had nothing like as many excess deaths as we had in the first wave. But my question is, how is this virus still finding so many people who are susceptible to it? We had started vaccinating the vulnerable by the time 2021 started, and we did a stellar job, which was praised at the time. It was amazing. We had done so many vaccines. We'd got a lot of vaccinated people, vulnerable people vaccinated. Maybe that was a Freudian slip, what I just said there. We got all our vulnerable vaccinated, right? And look at how many deaths we have seen from COVID since then. What is this? Is it over-attribution of COVID deaths? Is it over-testing? Is it that we're testing the elderly, people who are going to die, and labelling them as COVID wrongly? Or is the situation getting worse? Why did the population become more susceptible to COVID at the start of January? And then again in July? And then again in September? And why are they becoming more susceptible again now? These are just the government's numbers I'm showing you. And are you seeing this being discussed in the papers? Are you seeing it being discussed in the First Minister's presentations? Because I'm not aware of it. All I'm aware of is any time that anybody says anything which YouTube or Facebook or Twitter gets a whiff of that's anti-vaccine, gets taken down. I'm not seeing this being discussed. In terms of daily percentage rates, these graphs are all a bit muddled up today. I'm going out tonight, I'm in a bit of a rush. Look at this last week of test results. So you can see we've got one red, one blue, one yellow wave dot from this week. That's because we've done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday, the positive percentage rate that came back was around 6.5%. On Tuesday, it was 11.5%. We have never seen a variation like that in any week previously. Nothing like it. Also, there's never been a bigger spread than that. So actually, that red dot was higher than almost every other red dot on that graph, while the yellow dot was actually unusually low. So what I think that tells you is that these testing data are a bit poor quality at the moment. I don't want to bore you too much longer. The situation in the hospital is improving, but kind of slowly. Things are looking a bit better in ITU, but I suspect that's about to change. And here, the last graph, graph 13, you can see that this is vaccine delivered by day. So the blue spikes are first doses and the red spikes are second doses. So you can see here this vaccination program of children that's been going on. Absolutely outrageous, but there it is. I have done a wee calculation there. I think the vaccine rollout to children against JCVI advice started on the 23rd of September. So I worked out the total number of first doses that have been delivered in Scotland since then, and assuming they are mostly children, 12 to 15-year-olds, there have been 142,000. I'm not too sure. I did ask. I'm a bit lazy, too lazy to look it up, but I'm not quite sure how many 12 to 15-year-olds there are in Scotland, but we've vaccinated, it looks like about 140,000 of them. It looks like it's tailing off, and I sincerely hope that's an end to it, because we're seeing very worrying signals for excess deaths in kids in England, and that's with apparently fewer of them being vaccinated than we have in Scotland. I'm getting really tired of the folly here and the lack of inquisitiveness. Don't know why I'm asking these questions and no one else is. They seem like quite obvious questions. Please do let me know if you think that the questions I'm asking aren't reasonable and explain why. All I can say is stay sane, stay strong, stay tuned, and remember, I love you.